Now, we've just naturally sort of bumped into the concept of a controller. You may have heard the idea of Model View Controller or MVC, and in the Symfony framework, which we'll talk about more later, there's the idea of a controller as well. That controller is exactly what we generated in our Drupal 8 module in order to render the content on our page. Now, the basic idea of a controller is that it's sort of an intermediary between the data and the tool to display that data. And in the controller, you might end up performing some logic on that data or reorganizing it in such a way to send it to the tools that output it. Now, naturally, we've structured our code just like a controller would work. We've isolated out the data into these arrays, and that's the model part of Model View Controller. This is modeling the data. And then for the view part, we have this page build function and page theme. Those process the data and make it something viewable. And this bit of data right here is the controller. It's the thing that glues the two together. So we're going to move it into its own class to more mimic the structure that we're going to see in Drupal and that we would see in Symfony and a lot of other object-oriented projects as well. So let's jump back to the file browser and we'll open up the sixth step, which is called adding a controller. Copy the entire code and paste it over the code in your index.php file and save it. Now, just a quick reminder, if we go back to the file browser, right now we're in the OOP directory of the examples folder in our Drupal root directory, and this is where we're doing these examples. So far, we've had just an index.php file. That's about to change, and so I wanted to make sure if you're just hopping in midway through that you knew where we were. Okay, I'm going to go back to my editor. So now, the bottom code that we had is now replaced with this contact us controller, and then the two colons that indicate that we're going to use a static method, and the method is called contact us page. Let's jump to the browser just to make sure this is working all right. So I refresh the page and it looks good. We enter some information here and submit it. We get our "you submitted the following" at the top. All right, back to the code. So at the very bottom, instead of our several lines where we use an instance of the page object and then we use the build method on that, we're instead using the contact us controller class, and then you recognize these two colons here, which indicate that we're going to use a static method in this class. The method is called contact us page, and it's being passed page elements, which of course is what we had before. So now let's scroll up and take a look at this new class. So we have contact us controller, and then within that we have a function. It's static, which means that we can call it outside of an instance of the class. It's called contact us page. It takes the page elements, and here are the three lines that we had that used to be the code that was just procedural outside of this class. We create the new page object, we run build on it, but now instead of printing the result from page theme, we're returning it, and at the very bottom we're printing this to the page. So this isn't a big change here, and it just sort of naturally came about, but you can get the sense of what a controller in Drupal 8 is all about now. It's to link up the data to the way to display that data. You're going to have some code that does that, and having a name for it helps us deal with it and some of the choices that we make down the road.